Hey, how are you guys? Al here, and welcome to Dark Side Movie Reviews. As always, a special welcome if you are a guest. Thank you so much for stopping by. And if you're here and you're a fan of Into the Badlands, and you are going to love what we have today. And if you're not a fan of Into the Badlands, then stay tuned because you will be after you see this. So, we were able to interview none other than Daniel Wu, star of the show Into the Badlands. But I got to share this with you real quickly, you guys, before we get to the interview, because he deserves some recognition. And you might want to stand up where you are, unless you're driving, and give him a hand clap for this. So this is our second shoot, you guys. The first one was it wasn't salvageable. When I went to edit the video afterwards, I couldn't save pretty much anything, so we had to reshoot, but I didn't know if he was going to have time to do that. Well, it turns out he did agree to reshoot the interview. And on top of that, we did it today, the very same day he is actually leaving to go to China. So thank you so much, Daniel Wu, for giving me the opportunity to reshoot the video. And I know the fans are going to enjoy this interview. So guys, this is our interview. We did have to do a little bit of work on the audio because it went out here and there. So we did our best to compensate for that. But I think you guys are really going to love it. We do get into the show heavily. He also answers some fan questions. So here is our interview with none other than Daniel Wu. I hope you guys enjoy. If you like this video, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, and also make sure you check the link in the description for the Facebook group that I am a part of. It is an amazing group of fans of Into the Badlands. And with that, you guys, enjoy the video, and I'll see you soon. Thank you for being willing to do this again. Before we get started, I have to give a shout out to the Facebook group. So you guys, if you're watching this video, make sure that you check out the Into the Badlands Facebook group. I will put a link in the description. The group is phenomenal. It is a closed group. So all we talk in that group is Into the Badlands. As a matter of fact, they even give you a little 3-question test before they even allow you into the group. So make sure that you guys check that group out. Again, I will put a link in the description. I'm a part of that group, and we've got people that are a part of that group. And I don't know if you know this or not, Daniel, from actually all over the world. There are people that are part of that.
I'm not a Facebooker, really. I mean, my Instagram feeds to Facebook, but I don't really use Facebook, so I'm not aware of it. But that's great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, okay, so I just wanted to mention that. So, again, Daniel, thanks again for coming on. And I guess we'll start with kind of what a lot of folks have been talking about and what's happened with just the Emmys and kind of getting the snub there. So I have a couple of questions for you surrounding that. Number one, I guess why do you think that happened? If you can just kind of talk a little bit about that. What do you think happened there? I have some ideas about what happened there, but I'm interested to know what you think about what happened there.
Yeah, I mean, why I'm most disappointed about it is that we're obviously doing high-level stuff. We're doing high-level action. The fans recognize it. And it's just disappointing that the industry itself doesn't recognize it, And the Emmys represents the industry, right? And so
Right.
You want to get recognition within the industry for the good work that you've been doing, right? And so that's where the disappointment stems from, especially since the whole point of the show was to try to raise the level or raise the bar of action that's seen on American television screens, and I feel we've done that for sure. As the reason why we got snubbed, I went through all these other reasons like Emmy So White, or like, maybe that the stunt community is an old boys club and they're kind of protecting their people because our guys are not American,
Right.
or choreographers and all that stuff. But then more I think about it now, I think it's really just lack of exposure and just not being a common knowledge thing. Because again, I've been on these voting committees before, and there's so many categories that you have to vote in, and you're responsible for so many things. But when it comes to a category like this that most people don't take very seriously, they just kind of tick off the ones they've heard of.
Right.
And they probably don't even know whether the action is good or not. They just tick it off, so it's convenient. And I think that it's probably a matter of that. And it's just a matter of not getting the word out there enough that there's this amazing action show on television out there,
Well, it's interesting though, because so for me, I think probably a couple of things, but I agree with you primarily that it's probably a lack of exposure. And I've said this before, that there's no way in the world that someone watches this show and
Right.
does not get hooked. I mean, I always put out a challenge, and sometimes it's in some of my videos. If you watch the first 10 minutes of season 1, episode 1, and that's your scene basically with the nomads,
Right.
then you're going to watch the rest of the show, the series, you're going to be hooked because the kind of the uniqueness of the show or the power of which the show starts out, it pulls you in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of that scene was to sort of give people a teaser because it happens within the first 5 minutes of the first episode of like what where the level is, where the bar is, and then in the same episode with the rain fight, we push it even higher and go, this is what we can do as a group, as a whole.
yeah,
So the forest fight is like a little teaser, and then the rain fight gives you the massive payoff. And like, if any of the voting community just saw one or two of those fights and compared to anything that's out there on TV today, they would know that this is different stuff than what they were used to, you know.
right.
And I think it's just people never saw it, you know. And
So
like you're saying, that if you see it, you get hooked, or if you see it, you know what you're looking at. So, you know, the proof is in the pudding.
right.
So really, I think really it is. It's just not enough people have seen the show, or not enough voting people have seen the show to make an informative vote.
No, I agree, and especially when you think about who was nominated, and again, you got to help me with this list. I know that it was actually the Marvel show that was nominated was actually Punisher.
Punisher, that's right. Sorry.
That's right. That's okay. It was Punisher. I think it was Blacklist, Game of Thrones, um,
Blind spot.
Blind Spot. There was one more. I can't remember what the other one is, but for
I'll call it up right
okay,
now.
I know there was five.
Yeah. Never mind. My Instagram's acting up.
Is acting up.
But I had it on. Yeah, there's five. There's five.
Yeah, there were. I know there was five. And what was that last one? You got it.
Blacklist, Blind Spot, Game of Thrones, or Westworld.
Westworld, right?
Yeah.
So
I didn't see, but I think they might have good action.
right. I haven't seen Westworld either. I think Sherman was in Westworld for a little bit, I believe. Believe he had a role in Westworld. I could be wrong about that, Sherman Augustus, but
So I saw the first season. This season is like Samurai World.
okay,
Samurai World. So I think that there is some sort of action in it. So I haven't seen it, so I'm not sure.
okay. But so just if we take the folks that were nominated, and I'm going to tell you, I have seen the only show I haven't seen is Westworld. I've seen all of the others, so I can say that with a frame of reference to say that there still isn't any action in those shows that are even remotely as complex to me and engaging as Into the Badlands. Now, you might make an argument for Game of Thrones, which to me is kind of a little bit of a different class of action.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like what we've seen with Into the Badlands. So
Sure. I mean, I wouldn't say last year or the year before that Game of Thrones won for Battle of the Bastards.
Mhm.
Like that was an amazing coordination. So I think they deserved it. Even if we were competing that year, I think they would have deserved it because that was a crazy scene.
right,
But yeah. So I'm being fair here. I'm not saying we're the best out there.
Right.
I'm saying that we're in that realm and we should be included in that community. You know.
well, I think definitely Into the Badlands should be in a discussion. And for me, when I look at the fight choreography of Into the Badlands, it is the complexity of all of that. It's the execution of the moves, but not even that. It's the fight choreography, the camera movement, all of that is we haven't really seen that type of thing before on TV. So
Yeah, and I think that's what we're trying to demonstrate is the Hong Kong style is all inclusive. It includes the camera work, it includes the editing, all of that combined together to make it. So it's not disjointed things. I think what's typically done in Hollywood, I've experienced this on like Tomb Raider and other films, is that the action team creates the action, they create the choreography for the action, then the cinematographer figures out how to shoot it. And most likely they'll just do wide, medium, close.
right,
And then the editor puts it together in the editing room. And that's why lots of times in Western fight scenes, you see there's a non-linear or non-logical flow to the fight because they're just trying to make the scenes work kinetically,
Right.
in the edit. Whereas our fight is basically pre-edited before we even actually start shooting it. So each shot is for that particular set of moves. And then when we go on to the next section of the fight, that shot, the camera is in there fighting with us. We always consider the camera a third person in the fight, or an extra person in that fight. They're dancing along there with us, and so that's a whole nother level. And then the edit is each shot is specifically meant for that section, so you don't take that section and put it somewhere else or wherever. It's all linear and it flows together, and there's a rhythm and there's a flow, and everything created all in one as a cohesive whole. as opposed to multiple disjointed parts. You know.
So it's funny that you say that, because that's one of the things I think is so impressive, is that everything does seem cohesive, and it does resonate when you watch some action films from Western movies. The camera work and even some of the fight choreography seems at times disjointed, and honestly, sometimes it seems like the camera work is hiding the ability of the actor to really kind of. So
I think one mistake that we see often is the shaky cam, that people think the camera is in there with the fighters, but all they're doing is just shaking it and making it look like hiding the mistakes, basically.
Yeah.
And so then you edit around the parts that don't look so good, and then you make a sense of movement or a sense of action, and that's good enough. But it's evolved down to that. Originally, it was meant to be that the shaky camera means the camera was in with you, fighting along with everything, and
right.
that's why it felt like you were there. You're, mise en scene.
Right.
But yeah, now it's evolved to this point where it's like just a shaky camera effect.
Right. It's interesting because I only a handful of films for me have actually pulled off the shaky cam well, where I actually felt kind of like I was a silent person or an invisible person in, but a lot of them don't. A lot of them, it looks odd. So
yeah, it takes years of experience. I mean, the cameraman has to kind of know, or they have to know the choreography, not just kind of know. They have to know the choreography. They have to know where to pan to, where to go to in the fight. And we're always doing that. Like, we're always communicating very clearly with our camera operators where the lens should be at this particular moment in the fight. Because sometimes it's a medium shot, but we want to emphasize a punch or a kick, and so the camera has to drop down, fall back up, go around a fighter or whatever, all that kind of stuff. And they have to be coordinated with us. So it's not just like they're an observer on the outside or a fly on the wall on the outside. They're actually in it and moving around with us.
And that's what I was going to ask you, because I think at our last conversation you mentioned that with some of the shots of Into the Badlands, the cameraman is actually harnessed on a wire.
So like for the rain fight in season one, there's a whole lot of gags in that one fight. But one gag we did was I'm fighting down below with 4 swordsmen, 4 clippers down below. Then a 5th one that shows up on top on the balcony, and the camera's behind his shoulder, and he sees me fighting below. Then he jumps down, and the camera goes down with him. So what that entails is that stuntman's on a wire jumping down, but then the cameraman is on a wire also jumping down. So the cameraman is wired up too. And so he has to do a lot of the things that we have to do. It's even harder because he's holding a 40-pound camera trying to chase it all down, right?
Right.
And so, that's some of the things that we do. We did a shot this season with Widow fighting Widow, and we actually sent the camera starts up, a similar shot starts up on the 2nd floor. Widow jumps down, and we actually throw the camera down on a wire, and a guy on the bottom floor catches the camera and then runs into the fight, right? And it's like, that stuff is crazy. When you watch it, like when you watch the making of or whatever, it's like really, really crazy. And then, but most viewers may not even notice. They might think it's CG, they might think it's whatever, but we did it just like old school style.
Right.
Pass the camera off on a wire.
So that's, you know what, it's funny you say that too, because I was going to ask you, I got a fly in here. At least is that a fly? Yeah, as long as it's a fly, not a bee. I'm allergic to bee stings.
Got some chopsticks? Catch it.
You know what? I didn't want to, see, Daniel, now you're telling my secrets. I didn't want to display that level of skill on camera.
Right. Well, they can't see it anyway because you're so fast.
That's right. So I was going to ask you, again, with the fight choreography, because when we see this, and one of the things that's so impressive for us as fans is that, we already know that the cast puts in a lot of work. I know you guys have a fight camp, but I was asking you before, it looks like the level of I guess choreography here is just absolutely amazing, and how they all pull it off with a lot of them not having martial arts experience prior is absolutely phenomenal. So can you talk a little bit about kind of the work that goes into pulling off a fight scene?
Okay, so the fight camp is a 5-week-long session for all the actors and the stunt crew. We get them all together, and we work basically train together every day for 5 weeks, and it's 9 hours. We start at 9 in the morning, go to 6 in the afternoon, and it's tough. It's really tough. But what we do in there is, we do a lot of strength conditioning and stretching, because that stuff will keep you from getting injured, right? And then we work on basics. And we actually don't do super lot of martial arts because you don't want to confuse the people as well. So what we do is we give them a basic vocabulary of basic martial arts techniques. And what I like to explain it as is we're giving them letters in the alphabet. And then they can take those letters in the alphabet and string them together to make words those words can get strung together to be made into poetry, and that's what the choreography is, right? So if you know your alphabet, so a basic punch, basic kicking, roundhouse kicks, spinning kicks, whatever, all those kind of things, and you have that all down, you can string them together into choreography in any way, in any combination, because you have the solid foundation. So we just drill that stuff over and over and over again. And then again, we push like yoga, flexibility, and then strength conditioning, all that stuff to make them strong so they can pull all that stuff off and last the whole day of fighting, because we you know, it's 10 hours of filming a day, sometimes 6 days a week. And so, you know, an actor can be in it for a long time, and they have to be ready for that.
Right.
So it's tough. I mean, it's mentally tough. It's physically tough. There's a lot of difficult things about it.
Well, it's funny because one of the things that I think is so impressive when looking at the fight choreography, and I, you know, as a martial artist myself, I guess maybe I might notice this, and I don't know if a lot of people do, but even like fight mechanics, when I look at kick mechanics and things like that, and for me, those visually, those make the scenes more believable and more enjoyable. But all of that stuff, even kind of the technical aspects of some of the stuff that the cast is doing, you guys must have talked about, you know, I guess basic mechanics for pulling off some of those moves, because they look pretty technically sound on camera. So
yeah. I mean, I think, you know, for any kind of film fighting, form and mechanics is very important, right? Power is not necessarily important because we're not trying to knock people out for real.
Right.
So it's important that the form is correct and the mechanics are correct, and also correct mechanics keeps you from getting injured. When you try to force something in a way that your body's not meant to move, you're going to hurt yourself. And there's a reason why like martial arts systems are hundreds or thousands of years old, because they've studied the human body and they've studied how it works, and the most efficient way to throw a kick or a punch or whatever is by a certain form or a certain mechanics. And if you don't follow that, then you know, you either lose the power or you lose the speed or you get hurt. You know, and so we definitely drill that. Like I think some of the cast hate me sometimes because I drill that stuff real hard. Like we try to really perfect so that people like to get apart.
Right. I know. I think I saw one making of it, and you guys were doing the. We've done these in the past. They've always given me grief because I'm a big guy, so my flexibility is always challenging. But the stretch kicks, I think I saw Ali doing some of those in a fight camp video, I believe, that I watched online. So yeah.
We do a lot of stretch kicks because those are wushu based kicks, and so that teaches you full extension and form and all that kind of stuff. But also what we also do is in the choreography for the fighters themselves, when we're doing the fight camp, we're also observing, like Master Didi and Andy and Steven, they're also observing who is good at particular things.
Right.
And so then we try to emphasize what they're good at. So like Emily and Ali are really flexible, right? And so we want to use that to our advantage. So there's a lot of split kicks, a lot of like high stretch kicks and things like that for them. Someone like Sherman is not as flexible, so we would change it around. And that makes it work for the characters as well, because you want the characters to be fighting in a way that looks natural to them and also makes sense for their character.
Right.
And so it's integrating that as well. You know, the actor's ability, and who the character is, and their real life ability, and trying to mix that together. And so, you know, we see someone like Aramis likes doing flips and stuff. And so, he's really, you know, he plays a lot of basketball, so he's got a springy jump.
Okay.
So we use his jumps a lot. He's jumping a lot this season. You see it a lot. And it's also changed over time, because when he first started, he was only 15. So he wasn't as strong as he is now.
Right.
And so that's involved as well. Ali as well. She was very young, and now she's gotten stronger, more muscle mass and all that kind of stuff. And so she can perform a lot differently than season 1 or 2. So yeah, we try to build on people's strengths instead of trying to make them do something they can't do.
So an interesting thing about that is kind of just pivoting a little bit, because you know, I've said to my brother, I was talking to him about us getting together actually to do this video, and I was saying he's a big martial arts fan. So I was saying one of the things about this show is a person might think, if they've seen some of the martial arts execution, that is kind of the biggest thrust of the show, but that would be just so completely wrong, because the story, the world building, all of that really is what makes the show, you know, so unique. So, you know, you said before that there's something for everybody in this show, and it's so true. Yeah. If you like a tense drama, you've got so much in this show. So
yeah, I mean, there is so much on offer for the show besides the action, and that, you know, we're trying to make a great action show on American television, but at the same time we're also trying to make a great show. Period.
Right.
Because I don't think it works if it's just only action. We've seen a lot of movies that have great action and then terrible plot lines, or like really simplified plot lines. Like, for example, I'm not gonna say it's terrible, but on Bach, the first one, or this is the second one, where the fighting is amazing and it's so violent, but it's what he's trying to save a baby elephant, right?
Right.
It's like the violence doesn't equate with what he's actually doing.
Right.
It's really confusing, right? The action's amazing. It's like hands down of this decade, one of the best action films there is. But the storyline is kind of weird. It's like he's trying to save the baby elephant, and he's killing all these people to save the baby elephant. It's just weird. It's weird. So yeah, it's the point of trying to integrate it all so it all makes sense and it's all on one level, and it's a great show as a whole, and not just a great action show.
Which is interesting, because I feel like if you think about some of the action movies of the 80s, where it was enough for us to see phenomenal action on the screen, and we didn't really care so much, or at least I didn't care so much about the story. But I feel like with where we are now, especially with TV and movie making, because we've gotten so advanced with how we can shoot action, even though always the best action is live action, and action is not CG, just because you can always almost tell. So, but I say all that to say that storytelling is really important nowadays. You can't get away with just an action movie or just an action show, because people are not satisfied with that.
Yeah. I mean, people have matured and grown, and like we've grown. Probably why we didn't mind it so much as we were kids, right? We didn't understand that kind of stuff. And then now that you've grown up, you demand more. You want to have high quality storytelling as well as high quality action, and integrating it is really important. So,
given that, let's talk a little bit about the world building. And you mentioned before that in college you were, did you say, was it in architecture?
Yeah, so the world building was of a big interest to me, like all the details, because that also makes it float or sink. If there's holes in the world that you build, then it's going to sink. And so it was important that we had a very strong philosophy about what this world was. I think you mentioned it last time we talked, was like Alan Miles said that they didn't want it to look like most post-apocalyptic shows. They wanted it to look different. And so that was the starting point, we don't look like Mad Max, or we don't look like stuff that you've seen before.
Right.
And so that's where you see the costuming and all that stuff is very different and unique and new. In our world, we were talking about how, there's nothing, you see electricity, but there's nothing digital. There's no computers, nobody's got cell phones, none of that stuff.
Right.
The ideology behind that is that nothing digital can exist in the world if the world's reset. Because if you don't have factories making computer chips, you can't really, I guess you can upcycle, but that only lasts for a certain amount of time. And since we're so far ahead in the future,
right,
I don't think that stuff would work anymore. A lithium-ion battery, 500 years old, is not going to work anymore.
Right.
So everything that's mechanical or kind of low tech, so anything from this like 70s or before, like a car, for example, a 2018 car is not going to work 50 years from now, because if the computer board breaks on that car, the whole car just doesn't work at all anymore.
Right.
But a car with carburetors, you can still machine the parts, you can still mechanically fix the car, and so that's why you see all of our cars. There's nothing past the 1970s car, really.
Right.
Everything is all 70s and below. So you have like World War II era style Jeeps and stuff like that, and we have muscle cars, and we have trucks and things like that, but nothing exists past that point. So these things are being recycled in this world, but nothing digital can be recycled. And then clothing-wise and all that stuff, it's all handmade. It's supposed to look like it's handmade because there's no factories anymore in the world. So even if it's a factory, it's a small little factory with weaves and looms and all that kind of stuff making cloth. And you see one of the barons was the Baron of Silk. That is his industry. So it's like going back to a bygone era, but it is the future, and that's what the parameters of the world was. And then I would say a character in itself is the Badlands, the landscape in itself, that world. And I think once we moved out of New Orleans was tough. It was hard to really create that world in New Orleans because it's just really flat and swampy, and there's nothing really to see. And if you turn here or there, you see power lines, you see modern stuff everywhere, and it's really hard. We didn't have the budget to CG all that stuff out. Mm-hmm. So once we got to Ireland is like such beautiful landscape, and you can really demonstrate what this world was. And in season 2, you got to see the outlying territories, you got to see the interior Badlands world, you got to see how refined the Badlands world was as opposed to the outlying territories. and how it is actually kind of better in the Badlands. Because I think in season 1, everyone's like, why is everyone in the Badlands if it's so terrible?
Right.
Like that
Right.
territories is way more terrible, you know. And so there is still some sort of civilization within, or civilized life within the Badlands. And so we were able to show that by going to Ireland, because you get a contrast of environments that we could film. Like you could see the burnt out land that me and Baji were walking through when he eats the rat, right?
Right.
And all that stuff. That we couldn't show in season 1 because we didn't have those kind of locations. But Ireland opened that up for us and allowed us to show that, and so that helped with the world building as well as making the location an actual character in the show.
So I have a question about how you guys came up with the concept, kind of the Baron concept, which is one of the great things about the show as well, because the show almost is a little bit of a lesson in sociology and how different people groups flock to different things. Some people will aspire to become clippers. Some people will be cogs, if not by choice. But they're all these kind of different areas. So it's interesting just to see the social structure in the Badlands. But how did you guys come up with that whole idea?
That really came from Alan Miles, in that they wanted to show like a certain power structure in this world, and so they often refer to it as being very much like feudal Japanese times, right? Like a samurai, because that's kind of related to the story. And so they wanted to create a world where there's leaders, and there's a power dynamic, and there's a potential for war and civil strife. And so then they created the idea of barons, each baron holding a certain kind of industry, whether it being opium or fuel or silk or food or whatever. And as a microcosm or as a reflection of society today, and that big companies run things like that now.
Right.
And that's what we have to fight against, or we work with, to survive in this world, and so in this world it's very similar, but it's also similar to like medieval or feudalistic times, where there are warlords, and the peace was kept between the peace of these warlords, and if there was any beef, then a war happens and all the people down below have to fight.
Right.
That kind of situation. So yeah, I think but that's basically how that structure got set up.
Okay. Yeah, I think that whole idea is really cool. And I mean, he's no longer with us, the River King. I even thought that idea was cool, kind of someone who is controlling that kind of resource or the riverways, which is a really important role because it's an entry point to and from the Badlands. And we'll see what happens with, maybe we might have a new female River King, Baji's ex-wife, who knows, but so.
Yeah. All the little details help kind of create that world and how it functions. And I think we're pretty successful in doing that, like in terms of creating a real, like, you get a sense of how this world works and how these people function, how they live in this world without having to like explain it too much, you kind of just see it within the characters.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's one of the things that's most interesting as well. And then I'll say this before we move on to another question. One of the things I love about the costume design is I feel like the costume design is very well thought out. Even when you look at the type of fabric, for example, that's used with the different characters. So if we took in contrast how the Widow almost always has something on that's kind of sleek and kind of sultry, and then you contrast her with Moon, who always has on a heavier fabric, a much more kind of a powerful look, and even her fighting style is a lot more refined. It's fluid, it's fast, as opposed to Moon's, which is heavy, powerful. So those dynamics, I think,
Yeah, like Giovanni, our costume designer, he's Italian, so he understands clothing and fabrics and all that stuff really well. And really, he did an amazing job of matching that to the characters, and also not just to the characters, but to the state of the character at that moment.
Yeah.
Like last season 2, I went through like. In season 1, I had no costume change. I basically wore the same thing the whole time, right? Season 2, you saw me go through multiple costume changes, and it kind of represented different things. Okay, there was the kind of the beginning when Sonny's in the stocks, and he's like looking pretty bad in that raggedy outfit, right? That represented his state of mind at that point. And then when you see him, like, okay, he puts on Baron Chow's costume to try and slip into there in that world and all that kind of stuff, and you're able to see through Sonny, the beauty of those costumes through his path or through his story.
Yeah. No, I think that's incredible. And actually, since you touched on that, let's talk a little bit about his arc, because I said before when we were talking, it's really interesting to see kind of where Sonny comes from in season one to where he is today.
Yeah, I mean that's what I like most about playing Sunny. Not necessarily how cool the fighting is, but how I have an opportunity to play with the character in terms of his emotional arc, and they keep changing. Like season one, it was much more personal. It was a personal realization. I think the idea that he was a killer his whole life. That's all he was trained to do, and he was very good at it. And he realized to have success in that world is you need to show that you're good at that. And so he became a regent on his merits of his ability, which were some natural born talents, which we know now was because of Azra and all that stuff. But he had that talent, he went with it, and he probably didn't think about it because that was what was allowing him to survive and succeed in that world, and succeed not only survive but succeed and get to one of the highest levels. He became a regent, and so. But then once he created life, once Vale got pregnant, I think that's changed everything for him. And then he meets MK and realizes something about his past, that maybe he was not meant to do this. And so then he starts to question everything, and then it starts to break his world down. So all of season one, he's like in this daze trying to understand the world that he just came from and the world that's being opened up to him at the moment, and going, wait, where do I belong?
Right.
I think I don't want to be in this world anymore. I often look at it as like a mob story. Like he didn't know any better. He got into the mob, but then he meets this girl and he wants to have a normal life and he wants to get out and have a normal family, but he can't get out. And so that's the big struggle. So I think season one is that. Season two, obviously, he gets caught, he gets almost killed, he gets thrown out to the outlying territories and separated from his wife and child. And so season two is like a revenge story. It's all about him getting back, finding a way to get back, and then getting revenge on Quinn.
Right.
And then the tragedy at the end is he gets the revenge, but then he doesn't get to have his happy ending. And then in season three, we see him start off in that low point, that he's in that tragic state that he's lost his wife and he's now a single stay-at-home dad, and his son is sick.
Right.
And he's got to save his son. So he goes off on that journey. And then in that journey, in the efforts of saving his son, he opens up this big can of worms by giving Pilgrim the dark sheet. Yeah. That's where we're at right now. Right?
Yeah.
So he's now it's this issue of like, okay, I've done something that's affecting the world now, and I kind of screwed up. So now how do I fix this? And so that's where he is now. And so these arcs are very different. They're also different in scale. They're also different in meaning in terms of what it means to Sonny personally as opposed to what it means to the rest of the world. And now this issue now is a macro scale problem. He's given the wrong guy the codes to the nuclear weapons, and so he's got to figure out a way to get that back.
So that whole journey's been super interesting, and now of course we're all on the edge of our seats, and we've all got our theories and hypotheses about what things are going to happen and where things are going, which is so funny because I produced like a number of theory videos and then only to watch the next episode like I was wrong. So
when I watch you do those, I kind of smile. I'm like, oh, just wait till next episode. That's good. I like it that people are thinking about the show, and I think that's great. I think that's great entertainment is when you can think about it outside, or when you're forced to think about it outside of the show itself, like when it's not happening and it's consuming your mind. It's like we've done a great job with it.
Right.
I think that makes me really happy to see that.
Right. No, I mean, a lot of us, we go back and forth, especially in the Facebook group. We go back and forth about this or that and all these theories, like I think I said last time we talked, there were all these theories about who your sister is, and it's funny in some of the videos, like when you look at the comments, like and I said something crazy, like I don't know what I don't know if I said I thought it may have been Minerva, which is it couldn't have been Minerva had I been thinking about other stuff I saw on the show, but so all these just theories going on, so
right, yeah, I think a lot of people think it's the Master,
yeah. So yeah, all of that's been really interesting as well, just to kind of figure all that out. So I want to ask you a little bit about Baji now, because like I said the last time, I think that he was such a great addition to the show, because when he came in, he was kind of opposite of Sonny. Sonny was kind of really focused, kind of stoic, and Baji was kind of happy-go-lucky. They were great,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a typical kind of odd couple pairing, right? And it's because they're an odd couple, it makes it really entertaining because they have to work together, but they kind of hate each other, right?
Right.
But then eventually they love each other, right? And that's kind of the arc of what season 2 was about: was who's this guy? He seems like he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, but suddenly there's points where he knows what he's talking
Right.
about. So
Right.
then Sonny relies on him, but there's all these idiosyncrasies with his personality that Sonny can't stand, so he's got to deal with it. So that creates this comedy between these two characters, and I think that's kind of what the show was missing from season 1. Because in season 1 it was very dark and serious and blah blah blah, but you do need some comic relief every once in a while. You need a little snicker from the audience every once in a while, and I think Nick Frost definitely brings that, and the character Baji definitely helps lighten up the show a lot.
Yeah, I agree. And the interesting thing about Baji's character too is that he does bring in comic relief, but they've written enough into that character such that you do take him seriously. You realize he knows more than he always lets on.
Yeah, he's that mystical person that's like, yeah, you don't want to take him seriously, but you do have to take him seriously because he does know what he's talking about.
Right.
And so he just doesn't take himself seriously. So,
right.
So that's the fun part about it, and I think it's really important for the dynamic of the relationship between the characters. This also was great for me because, like in season 1, Sonny had no one to talk to, right? Because, I mean, there's a lot going on in his mind. He can't really tell MK about it. He doesn't know MK. He doesn't trust that kid, right? He can't really tell Vale because if she knows too much, she could put her in danger. And it ain't like he's going to be talking to Quinn about it,
right?
What he's feeling. And I think that was what I was trying to show through Sonny in season 1 was that the people, like the person that he probably trusted the most was Quinn at one point in his life. He's not trusting him so much anymore, and so he couldn't rely on him and couldn't talk to him about the issues because Quinn set out the rules. You can't be married. You can't have kids. You can't have this. It means death. And Sonny being an enforcer of that, that's what put him in that conundrum. So he just became silent and he just was trying to figure out on his own. But then when you go into season 2, you got Baji there. Then they're able to conspire together, and then you're able to hear what's going on in Sonny's head.
Right. So I wanted to ask you this too: the addition of Sherman Augustus, who was awesome because prior to him, you were like. You were the kind of the quintessential Baron, and then we find there's this guy in the Outlands. So, can you talk a little bit about his addition?
That really came as because we established in season 1 that Sonny's a badass, right? But if there's no one to really challenge him, then the fights will start to get boring as an audience, because you know the outcome.
Right.
So we wanted to create a character that, when you saw the challenge, you're gonna be like, oh damn, is he gonna be able to beat him or not?
Yeah.
You wanted that old school kung fu movie challenge vibe. The oh, here comes a new guy in town, or who's this guy on all black?
Right.
He's gonna be some trouble, right? And then he does. And he was such a great character, even though he only lasted 1 episode in season 2. He's such a great character that when we finished the season, we're like, we gotta bring him back, right? And that's why we brought him back.
Okay.
Not only because the character was great, but Sherman himself is a great actor. He's a great person to work with. He was a great dude to be around. So we just wanted to have his presence back on the set.
Yeah.
And so it was a cool way to bring him back into the fray this season.
Well, I know we were happy to have him come back, and I was glad the door was left open because I wasn't sure what was going to happen at the end of that fight between you two, and he loses the hand, but. So
yeah, it was definitely very deliberate not to kill him off, right? It was it was important in that episode to show that Sonny was not wanting to kill anymore.
Right.
He didn't want to fight that fight, right? And then he actually wasn't the one that cut Moon's hand off. It was Baji.
It was Baji. Yeah.
So trying to protect him. So,
yeah.
Sonny could have died at that moment, and he was resigned to doing that because he felt like that was his fate, in that moment. But yeah.
It's interesting too when you look at a character like Sherman, or actually even all the characters in the Badlands, because I still remember that first intro where Aramis is kind of doing the voiceover as you're riding out through the poppy fields, and he kind of makes the statement that no one is innocent in the Badlands. But for me, when you looked at least nobility, I always looked at Sonny's character as a noble character. I mean, he had his faults, but there was something about him that was noble. But I feel like when we met Moon, and even though Moon everybody has their faults, but he kind of became kind of the noble, kind of the honorable. Not that you're not honorable, Daniel, but you know what I mean. So
it was, his character was trying to emphasize that in that world, amongst these people on that level, they value those things.
right.
You know, as messed up as the world is that they live in, they still value that honor system, right? I guess it's because they come from a system that's like the military, and they have to respect each other, and then martial arts as well.
Right.
The level of respect. And so that's what we're trying to emphasize with that, with the introduction of that character in that particular episode.
Oh, I want to jump back to this too, so that I don't forget. One of my favorite fight scenes. I don't know if you saw the ranking video I did for. It was just season 8, and we'd only had it. But how in the world, or can you talk a little bit about how they did the blind cannibal fight scene? That scene was phenomenal, and I think it was like 3 on my list of fight. But.
Right, that was one that we kind of weren't sure going in how it was going to be. And there were a lot of different theories of how we wanted to do it. And originally, one of the ideas was to actually, because there's a really famous Chinese opera story about a robber and a guy who's trying to he's a martial artist, but he's trying to rob this guy at night. And the whole scene takes place at night, but the audience can see, right? So they're all reaching around the room, almost touching each other, but pretending to be blind.
Mm-hmm.
But we wanted to use that idea, but then it's hard to do that to film because when it's dark, you're not seeing anything as an audience, right? And so then we had to switch it, and then we came out with this idea that they're blind, but they have other senses that they use to help them fight, right? So the sword, going down the wall, scratching down the wall is almost like a walking stick, that kind of thing. And then their formation, the way they fight, is to make up for their weaknesses of not being able to cover all sides, right? And that's why they go into those funny formations that they can do. But that was also to homage like old school Shaw Brothers kung fu movies, where that multiple guys would get into a crazy formation like that, or the 18 palms of Buddha, or whatever. That kind of thing. And so it was trying to reference that. It was very interesting to film because it was very dark in the room, and the stunt dudes had to wear prosthetic makeup that didn't entirely cover their eyes, but it made it very difficult to see out of those holes. And when you're swinging swords, or you're getting swords swung at by a guy that can't really see you,
right?
It's a little bit disconcerting, a little bit dangerous. But that was a fun scene to make, and I also like it because of the oddity of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
We're in this weird ass hospital with this, these fetuses in these jars all around us.
Yeah.
And then these blind swordsmen coming in, and then also able to fight, showing the characters like the way Baji fights by doing the body slam on the bed,
right,
and smashing those guys down, and then hiding under the thing, just showing how he's clever, how Sonny just fights through stuff.
Right.
I think Sonny could save a lot more energy if he learned a little lesson from Baji on how to save some energy, right? But yeah, that was a cool fight. I like that fight a lot for season 3.
Yeah, that was cool, and that was cool because it helped us. That was kind of part of a little bit of your backstory. So.
Well, yeah, that whole episode and it seemed like a weird tangent for Sonny for the story to go, because I can imagine the audience like, where is this going? Like, why are they doing this? But the whole point of it was to reveal Sonny's backstory, that and I think the one main theme that goes through all 3 seasons is that these tattoos on his back is really like a weight on his back, and he's trying to get away from that stuff. But everywhere he turns, it faces him. He has to face it again. So in a way, it's like expanding on Enter the Dragon, the mirror room.
Yeah.
Your worst enemy is yourself, right? And so I think that was definitely that whole episode about the blind swordsman was really to emphasize more about Sonny's backstory and about how he is trying so hard to get out of that world, but it just keeps pulling him back in no matter what. And so do you have to accept that fate, or can you really escape from it? I think that theme is maintained throughout the 3 seasons.
Right, I agree with that. And it's funny because I feel like now Sonny's kind of coming out of it, or he may even, I feel like he's still kind of coming out of it, but you feel the weight of kind of the sins of the past, quote unquote, right. That he, all those folks, all those lives he's taken. So I wanted to ask you about Lorraine Toussaint's character, Cressida.
Yeah, okay.
And are we going to get any more? I know for me as a fan, like I'm still wondering, like, okay, what's up with this girl? So are we going to get any more of her backstory, as much as you can say?
I don't know about backstory, but I think her character is definitely going to evolve a bit more.
Okay.
You're going to see her relationship with Pilgrim evolve a bit more.
Okay.
Or you're going to be definitely more informed and, let's say, surprised.
Okay.
But yeah, she is lovely to work with. I didn't have too many scenes with her, but I just love watching her work. Like sometimes if I'm not working on a scene, I'll just watch her work just because she's such a powerful actress.
Right.
She just needs to say lines. That's it. She doesn't need to fight. She doesn't say anything, and she can be scary or powerful or whatever, just the way she delivers the lines. And so that is one interesting about her, and I love her. She's just a wonderful person to be around, an inspiring person to be around. But yeah, her character is definitely going to evolve. She was so enthusiastic about being in this show. Like at first, she's a Juilliard actress, and so
I didn't know that.
Yeah, like I thought she would come into this show being like, okay, what is this popcorn baloney? But she really got into it. She loved it. She loved it. She loved every moment of it. And she saw things in it that even we didn't see, and drew those kind of metaphors out of her character.
Okay,
that was great.
Yeah, I mean, she's a great character, and since meeting her, I was kind of trying to figure out what's going on. It's interesting. She has a part in the show where she's having a dialogue with Baji when Baji's kind of reading the Book of Azra, and she's surprised that Baji can read it, and she makes a comment about Ankara, and I thought again it just kind of made me more interested in her because she acts like this is my idea. She acts like she doesn't know who Ankara is, and I'm thinking a lady who knows this much about Pilgrim and about kind of all this going on, I'm sure you have some idea of who Ankara is. I almost felt like Ankara was maybe a threat to her, and she was kind of trying to mask that. This is just my theory.
Right.
So.
Right. No. Yeah. I mean, if you're looking at similar characters that have similar powers and similar abilities, yeah, they would definitely be enemies, I guess, at one point, or partners.
Right.
Could be.
Right.
Kind of thing,
so I'm interested to see again how if Ankara comes back. I like to see her just because I like the interaction between she and Baji seem like similar characters to me, between her and Baji, kind of both. And they kind of have a comedic element to them. So
and Baji?
Yeah,
and I thought that was beautiful too because that the banter they have with each other also shows their history.
Right.
That there's this level that we maybe don't talk about their backstory, but these people know each other by just the way they interact.
Right. So I mean, I'd be interested. I'm looking forward to seeing how hopefully how the Black Lotus will play into all of this. We got that was a great fight scene with those guys too. So
yeah, the ladder fight.
Yeah. So it's funny because that ladder scene now that reminds me of something that's kind of Jackie Chan-esque, if you will.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, this season we have a few moments like that. I think the market fight is on Baji's side is definitely Jackie Chan-esque, or it actually is reminiscent of like the 70s Jackie Chan movies. There were a lot more comedy involved and a lot of buddy action,
right?
And like Meals on Wheels and stuff like that. And
right.
The market fight was definitely a homage to that, and then the ladder fight was, or the use of the ladder was definitely homaging Jackie as well. That kind of stuff where he uses whatever's around him to fight people. And so the ladder spinning and all that stuff. We're definitely trying a little wink at Jackie for that.
So that was great. And I want to get to a few fan questions because I don't want to hold you too long. I know you're on your way out the door.
Sure.
But I do have a question about what's her name? Two questions. One about Lydia. And Lydia to me is a fascinating character. And Sherman Augustus said this in another interview, which I thought was interesting because I agree. She always seems to be playing chess in some sense. She's always seems to be like looking ahead. So,
yeah, I think in the show that most of the characters are very strong, and they're all strong in different ways. And she's definitely you wouldn't say that she's a great fighter, but she's a great mental fighter, right?
Right.
She's been around the block.
Right.
She's gotten to where she is just being married to Quinn by being a smart thinker. That was not just pure love,
right?
She schemed her way to get there, and so. Or let's not say scheme, but she plotted her way to get to that point. And so she definitely understands politics.
Right.
And I think that's what she's good at. And I think that's why the widow wanted to use her as a teammate because she understands how to get through that stuff without having to fight
Right.
necessarily.
No,
Fighting a different way, a devious, more devious way, you know.
I mean, I definitely would want her on my team. I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
and then,
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying, yeah. And she definitely, Orla Brady definitely can bring that sensibility, like that, you know, that she's a highly intelligent person, and that she can exude that sense of, you know, smart cunningness through the character.
Right. And then I wanted to ask you about Jade, because we don't, unless I missed something. I don't. I think I understand it that the widow kind of gave her an out, like, you best go. But I don't think she was killed off. Are we gonna? I don't know if you can answer this or not. Are we gonna see her again?
Not this season.
Okay.
So she was sent off, and it was probably in her best interest not to come back.
Right.
She stirred up a lot of crap.
Right.
Right. And so she was sent off. So we may see her back, but not this season.
Okay. And of course, inquiring minds want to know. I might be getting myself in trouble, Sonny, but you don't have to answer it. Are we going to see Waldo again?
I would really love to. We would have really loved to, but he's filming Avatar 2 and 3 now, so that's why we couldn't get him back. But his presence though is still felt throughout the season. I love working with him too. Stephen Lang is a awesome, amazing actor. He just gets his work done, and there's no BS, and just an amazing supportive person.
Yeah, I wondered if I know that he was working on some other projects. I think that I read also he's working on Get Out 2, as a matter of fact, too.
Oh, really? Oh, wow, cool.
So, but not Get Out. What's the name of the movie where he was blind? I can't remember it, but I think he's working on a sequel to that. That's what I heard. I don't know if that's true or not. So
that movie was crazy. When I watched it, I was like, "Whoa, man!"
Yeah, it was funny. I enjoyed his performance, but honestly, I did not give that movie the best review. I just,
Sure.
So.
Sure. No, but I like seeing him play that character. It was interesting.
Yeah. So let's get to some fan questions, and then I will let you get ready to get on a plane. So. Okay, so let's take the first one from, this one is from Devin Lowe, and most of these questions are from the Facebook group. A few of them are from the YouTube channel, and there's one from Twitter. So this one is, who is the biggest troublemaker on the set of Into the Badlands? Also, do you have a favorite memory with the cast or crew?
Biggest troublemaker on set is probably me, because I like to prank the cast a lot.
Yeah.
And you might have seen some of that on my Instagram last year. But offset, I think this season was definitely Lewis and Aramis, because they would just get together and tear up the town every weekend. So I just didn't have that energy. I'd just go home and sleep.
Right.
But yeah, on set it would be me. And then greatest memory. There's so many great memories, but I think one that stood out definitely that was emotionally touching and very appropriate was last year when we were doing the moon fight. We were in this church, and we were like the last day of the fight. It happened to be my birthday, and we were kind of getting near to finishing up the fight. And there was that section where I flip up on top of the wooden structure, and we're fighting with Moon up there. And we'd finished that section, and we'd come down already. And then Master Didi was like, "You need to get in a harness. You need to go back up there." And I'm like, "What's going on? Like, why do we have to go back up there? We finished that section already, right?" But I didn't want to. I never question Didi. He does the choreography, and I go with it. And sometimes I make suggestions here and there, but I don't want to question his decision making, because the storyboard is all in his head, so you have to trust him.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I'll get back in the wire harness. I get back in, and they haul me up to the ceiling, way up there. And I'm just hanging there. I'm like, what's going on? And then suddenly the whole crew brings in like a birthday cake and singing happy birthday, and my wife and daughter come in and everything. So they have
that's cool.
A surprise birthday for me. So that was very cool Badlands way to celebrate my birthday, hanging from a wire.
Yeah, that's very cool. I know I've heard that the cast gets along pretty well on the show.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it's interesting because it's such an interesting slice of age groups. You know, we have teenagers, we have 20-somethings, we have 30-somethings, we have 40-somethings, we have 50-somethings, and there's 60-somethings. It's a whole range of people.
Right.
And sometimes we get all together. Sometimes it's just the kids getting together. Sometimes, it's just the 30-something, 40-something getting together. It's really dynamic. And then when we're all together, it's really fun, and we all get along, which is a great thing.
Right.
It's hard to do. Hard to get, a dozen people to get along all the time, and especially when you're around each other all the time for 9 months like we were.
Yeah.
And it was great. It was great. I think it also helped that we're not always filming together. Like there's storylines going off all over the place, so we're not always together as well.
Right.
So when we see each other, it's always a happy moment.
Right. No, I think it's amazing because I do know that it's not always like that on film or TV sets.
Oh yeah.
So.
Interesting.
Okay, so our next question comes from. Oh, this is interesting. I think you'll find this interesting. This one comes from Catherine N. Wong. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that middle name right. NG. Is it?
That's actually my Chinese name. Wu is Mandarin. Is Cantonese.
Ah. Okay. Okay. So this is a question that she asked. Is there any way you can get some of your Hong Kong co-stars to appear on the show? And then these are names, so hopefully I don't butcher these. You got to bear with me. I think Shu, is it Ki or Kai? Shuke, Louis, Ko, Louis Koo, Marion Yuen, and Gao. Is it On? Is that how you pronounce it? XUN?
What? Say it again.
Is it GOA is the first name, last name XUN?
Zhou Xun. Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, they're all my great friends, and they're all huge stars in Asia. I don't think we can afford them. To tell you the truth, I mean, these are people that are like the Angelina Jolie, the Brad Pitt.
Oh wow.
Shuke happens to be Steven's wife.
Okay.
Who me, Stephen Fong, and her were in my first movie, Bishonen, which she was in it and he was in it.
Okay.
We all met then, 20 years ago. And now he's married to her, and me and Stephen work together. So that's kind of interesting history. Yeah, all those other people, I would love to get them in, but I don't think we can afford their salaries.
Okay. Well, there you go, Catherine. There's your answer. She is actually part of a member of the Facebook group. So, all right. Angela asks, what can fans do to keep promoting the show, and are there any words of encouragement?
The words of encouragement first of all, I'm just really amazed and so happy about the love we get for the show. And, because we were, I mean, everybody works hard on their own shows, but we work extra hard on the show because of the action element.
Yeah.
It just takes so much out of you. So, and sometimes, like, especially this past season, like shooting for 9 months, everybody had emotional breakdowns. It was hard. It was hard getting through the cold, the toughness of the schedule, the fighting, all. And we see the love of the fans when we're all done with it, makes it all worth it. So we're so ecstatic that there's such a strong support. And also, I mean, to tell you the truth, I am more a martial arts film nerd than I am, let's say, a martial arts expert.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in some ways, this show is made for the fans. It's made for people like me and Steven, who were martial arts movies fans growing up before we even started learning martial arts, and to really give something back to the people that we know they want to see this stuff, right? And so to get the support back and reciprocation is just amazing, who we know is working, right? But what can fans do to spread the love more? I really don't know. Like, I've been thinking about this. I think talk about it more on social media. When the show picks back up in the winter, in January, for the season 3B, to get more involved on Twitter, try to make it a trending topic, try to make it like out there in the mainstream. And when it gets more out there in the mainstream, I think more people will take notice of it and go, hey, what is this show? Let's check it out.
Right.
I think trying to get the information out there, because I think that's the problem right now, is that not enough information is getting out there. We've seen advertising here and there, but it's not consistent across the board, and it's still not a household name, the show. So it's just a matter of people just talking about it more.
Well, I agree. I mean, and as you know, with this channel, we do cover other things on this channel, but the crux of what we cover is this show, and one of the missions of this channel is to really give some eyes to the show on this platform.
People like you are doing that. Yeah.
So, so we're gonna do our part. Oh, I wanted to ask you. So, did we hear, or is there any word on New York Comic Con?
Not yet. I haven't heard anything official official yet, but it seems like it's happening.
Okay.
The addition that third person those guys are doing
Yeah.
is really kind of help bolster that along. So hopefully, I got my fingers crossed.
Okay.
I can't promise anything yet because the executive decision hasn't been made yet, but hopefully it will be sent out there.
Well, hopefully, man, they're sensitive to the fan base, because we really are trying to make as much noise as we can about that. I think I told you last time AMC put something on their Facebook page, and we just flooded it with Into the Badlands stuff, and I believe that the post was actually even taken down because we so
badger them. But I think that's what you need to do, is just to let them know that there are people that really love the show, and don't forget about that.
Right. Okay. This one is from Marilyn Farley Sullivan, and she asked, and I'm pretty sure this is a Hollywood film. Are you in line for another movie?
Right now, no. I'm looking at scripts right now. Nothing interesting yet. It's interesting. I'm known as an action guy from this show, but in my career in Asia for 20 years was not necessarily just in action. And so I would like to explore other genres besides the action genre. And so I'm looking for the right project now. A lot of things being thrown at me are because of Badlands, and so it's all very heavily action based. But I'm looking for something interesting, maybe even quirky, to do stateside. Obviously I did the Tomb Raider, which was fun, but I want to do something I haven't done before, which is hard because in Asia I've done almost probably 65 movies, so I've done a lot of different genres. But I will be going back to Asia in November for a Chinese project. Coming to the States and working on Badlands doesn't mean I've given up on
right.
over there. I'm trying to have my foot in both worlds. And so I will be going back to Asia to do a project there, which I haven't done in a couple of years.
So, given that, I want to ask you kind of a spring-off question. Are there any of your Asian films, or the films that were done primarily in Hong Kong, that you would suggest for us here? And if I don't know if they had subtitles, that'd be great. But are there any films?
Well, the great thing about Hong Kong films is they all have subtitles, because Hong Kong was once a British colony, so it just became a standard that they put in most Hong Kong films.
Okay.
My favorites are One Night in Mongkok, and probably New Police Story with Jackie Chan.
Okay.
And then recently, this movie called Overheard 2. Actually, I was in Overheard 1, 2, and 3, but my character becomes the main character in Overheard 2.
Okay.
So I like that one. These are all action-based. If you like romantic comedies, there's one called Love Undercover.
Okay.
Which is interesting. And it's also very young. I was like 25 when I did that.
Okay.
Goodbye, Mr. Tumor, which is an interesting movie it's based on a true story about a girl who got brain cancer, and terminal brain cancer, and how she dealt with that. And I played her doctor who's trying to help her along.
Okay.
That was more recent, a few years ago. Yeah, that's a good handful of them.
Okay.
And then there's a movie I directed, which is called The Heavenly Kings. 2007. It has nothing to do with martial arts at all. It was a parody on boy bands.
Okay.
If you remember Zoolander, it was a feature film, about making fun of the male modeling industry. Right? So this movie, at the time, like, boy bands were going crazy, and I was just like driven nuts by these boy bands, right? And so I was like, let's make a boy band movie to parody them. And then I realized that it would be too expensive to make a budget like that. I mean, for a film like that, for the budget for concert scene with the audience and all that stuff. So what we did was we actually became a boy band for a year and a half.
Oh yeah.
And we filmed our exploits. So then the film ended up being like a mockumentary.
Uh-huh.
And then no one knew that it was fake until we released the film. So that one, I think it might even be on Netflix actually, but it's around. That one's around definitely.
Oh, I gotta check that out.
Yeah.
All right. So
the title is a riff on the four kings of pop in Hong Kong are called the Heavenly Kings. So we just stole their name and put it in as our title.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, guys. So you heard that. Some things to look out for. All right. A few more questions.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. This one comes from Pegatron Yin. I love that name. I guess that's a play off of Megatron's name, but. And it says, what lead role in a Hollywood film would you want to play?
Oh, I don't know. I would say, of all the things I've come up with in the past, and this is one I came up with and then they made a movie, which was a separate Kato movie, like a movie just about Kato.
Yeah.
Where Kato is more the lead and less the sidekick.
Yeah.
But then they came out with the Seth Rogen,
the Green Hornet.
That kind of quashed my dream. Yeah, I was a little let down by that movie because Michel Gondry was directing. I love that guy as a director, and I thought it was going to be amazing, but it didn't. It was strange.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is, I wanted to do a really dark Kato movie where the idea was the first opening scene. You know, like in this show, Kato's always kind of saving the Green Hornet.
Right.
Right. In the opening scene, Kato's doing the regular thing again, trying to save Green Hornet, but he gets there like a minute too late, and Green Hornet gets killed. So then the rest of the thing is about him trying to find out who did it and revenge that death. It's very simple, but it was a way to resurrect the Kato character. And then, you know, it was going to be like old school kung fu where he has to go back to China to train with his old master to get his level up, to be able to fight the bad guy in the end, and then come back to get his revenge. You know, like an old school Shaw Brothers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kato thing. Yeah.
Well, man, like I say, it's never too late.
Yeah, it still could be done. Maybe someone might hear this pitch out there and think it's a good idea.
Right. All right, so this one is from Jay Nguyen, and it says, this is interesting. Do you watch your own shows? And if so, what is your favorite performance from the show? Because I know a lot of actors don't like to watch themselves on camera.
Yeah, most of my career has been that. Like, I really don't like watching myself because it makes me look at the character from the outside instead of from the inside, especially when we're filming. Like, I really don't like to look at rushes or dailies. Because it can mess you up a little bit. But on this show, because I'm an EP, an executive producer, I have to look at everything. So I had to kind of break out of that mold. So this show, I've definitely seen a lot more of myself than I like to see. But yeah, I don't really like to watch myself. So I try to disconnect when I'm doing it. Yeah, because this show, you know, there's so many levels. We have to look at the edit of the action. We have to look at the edit of the drama. We have to look at it when the music gets put on. We have to look at so many different versions of it that I kind of get sick and tired of it by the time it airs. So I watch it on the night it airs, and then probably after that I don't ever watch it again.
Okay.
And the same thing with my movies. All of my movies probably I've seen once, except for my first movie. I probably saw that several times, but then after that, once at the premiere, and then that's it.
That's it.
Let's move on. Yeah. My favorite scene from all these 3 seasons, I think, is there's 2. And it's the end of season 2, which is the moment that I see Vale for the first time after the whole season. You know, look searching for her for the whole season, that really emotional hug and kiss. And then the tragic part right after the fight with Quinn is when Vale dies 2 years later. That really sad moment of loss, that was really, really hard to go through as well, because emotionally I was going through several things. One was the loss of the character, but the actress herself, because she was a part of our team and our cast, and I just was, you know, not looking forward to missing her from our group. So it was an emotional day on set, period, and it was great to be able to pull that scene off.
Yeah. No, it's that was an emotional scene for me too. It's funny, you know what another emotional scene was for me? I was kind of both with Vale's parents when Quinn went in there and did that. Man.
Yeah, that was crazy too.
You're right. I was so mad at him. Let me tell you, Daniel, I was like, let me at him.
Yeah, right.
So
yeah, that was a really tough day too. Now that I think about it, that was good. Yeah, that was a rough scene. All right, so we've got 2 more questions. Actually, 1 more question, and this one is from Nana Kwame Fuso, Real Genius, another Facebook group member. Incidentally, this I don't know if you just kind of picked up on some of the names. The Facebook group is super diverse, and they're from all over the world. Yeah. So I'm aware that the show has traveled pretty well, because I get, you know, tweets from people from Africa, people from Europe, people from South America, and so it's really great to see that it expanded beyond like what we set out to do, which was just make the show successful in the States. But now it's gone out to all these other different countries as well. It just shows that there is a big desire for shows like this. You know, like people like kind of this genre.
I need to see also. Now that you said, I wonder if there's a way. I know that there's a push amongst us here in the States, but I wonder if there's a way also to kind of get a movement going on in some of the other places to really push the show.
One thing I noticed is that, you know, there's no merchandising here in the States. You can't get a T-shirt, you
right.
can't get anything, right? But I just saw a guy tweet from Argentina, and he's got like a little sword USB, and like AMC Argentina is making all these things, like
Oh,
making
wow.
all these little Badlands products. I'm like, how come we don't got? How come
Right.
the USA is not doing it? Because I'm sure a lot of you guys would love to have like a T-shirt like this,
Right.
or something. But these are all like crew stuff, and I can't do it. I'm actually in process right now because we don't have any merchandising. I'm working with a store in San Francisco called Dark Side Initiative, and they do like street fashion stuff.
Mhm.
To do a collaboration, so we're gonna do some bags, some backpacks, some T-shirts and hoodies, just because I feel like the fans want it.
Oh yeah.
And it's not being done, so like I wanted to initiate that and start getting it done. So we're working on that now. It'll probably be out. Hopefully, we're trying to get it out before the premiere of 3B season 3B, episode 9. So hopefully, come then. I'll let you guys know when it happens, so you guys can jump on all those products.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So yeah, in Argentina, they make all these products, they make all this stuff, and it's like. So I think that it is getting out there, and they're doing different ways of promoting it out there in those different places.
Well, I'm glad somebody is. I know, because I was looking for some merchandise, and I actually even went into AMC store, and there's barely anything there.
Yeah,
Sorry,
well,
fly.
yeah.
But
That was good. That was a good dodge there.
yeah. Yep. I'm gonna bill you for that if I see that move on camera.
Okay. Yeah, and I remember for season 1 in Spain, some department store was like a co-sponsor, and so they did all their window displays in like Badlands styles.
Oh, wow.
The windows, which was pretty cool. So
Wow.
yeah, I think they're pretty aggressive in how they promote the show outside.
I mean, and I know you can get like some clothing merchandise I've seen on Facebook advertising kind of replicas of Sonny's red and black outfit from first season.
Yeah.
So
Unfortunately, I think those are all knockoff stuff. But I would like to see officially sanctioned gear that people can get.
right. Well, man, look, hopefully when things get up and running with this in the store in San Francisco, you can shoot out maybe a link or some info on your IG.
Sure. No, I'll definitely post that on IG.
So, okay, our final question. Or did I ask you this? No, I just gave you the person's name, but I never asked you the question. Nana asks, are you related to Jet Li? What is the best Jet Li movie you have ever seen?
So I'm not related to Jet Li blood-wise, but we do have a connection, like a second degree of connection. My wushu coach, Zhang Hongmei, was the women's national champion when he was the men's national champion. They were on the same wushu team, so they grew up together.
Okay.
They were like, little kids. And then I trained at the Beijing Wushu Academy there in the 90s. And so and I've also met Jet many times, but we don't have a bloodline connection.
Okay.
And then my favorite Jet Li movie still probably has to be Shaolin Temple, because that's the movie that started it all for me. That's the movie I got taken to a Chinatown movie theater when I was 7 by my grandfather and told this is the real Kung Fu. Because I was watching probably like Shaw Brothers dub movies on TV when I was a kid. And he was like, no, that stuff's all fake. This is the real stuff. And there's that one scene where like Jet looks over the wall and all the monks are training with all their different weapons and all that stuff. And that scene just got me. I was like, I gotta learn wushu. And so that's what got me onto it. I don't think it's necessarily the best movie action-wise for Jet Li. I think Once Upon a Time in China is probably the best one.
Okay.
It's a great story. Trey Hark is one of the best directors in that style of wuxia filmmaking, and that was kind of, I think, both their peaks. I think it was Jet's physical peak as well as Trey Hark's creative peak, and so that movie just was a great movie overall. They made like 4 of them, but the first one was the best.
All right, man. Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of Jet Li's, and it's interesting too how he's been able to break into a lot of kind of, I guess they've been kind of American films. I think some of them have been maybe collaboration films between American and maybe some Hong Kong or Chinese film houses. Right. But one of the things that and I'll end with this is I wonder for a lot of actors that do. That have a lot of action movies, especially a lot of Asian actors that have a lot of action movies that actually do movies in the States as well. Is there a fear or nervousness about being typecast? Which you yourself said a lot of the scripts you're getting are kind of, so.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely don't want to be typecast, so that's why I'm trying to be, show more well-rounded palette of things I can do. I think for Jet and Jackie, it's different because that's all they've done their whole life. And Jackie was my manager for 11 years. We're still really good friends. And he's often told me, he's like, I want to be like De Niro. I want to be able to do other movies, but unfortunately, no one's going to pay no one's gonna finance a movie of me just acting.
Yeah.
You know? Like he's sneaking it in these days, like The Foreigner.
Yeah.
He's tremendously good acting job in that.
Yeah.
I think obviously Karate Kid, like he was great in that.
Yeah.
It was like a different side of Jackie in terms of acting wise you never saw before. And so I think, you know, he's finally showing his vulnerability in different ways now than just like the I can feel pain when I punch somebody, that kind of thing, you know?
Right.
And so they were seeing another side of him. Jeff has also done a couple movies in Asia that are not fighting at all.
Okay.
I think one of them was a movie, I forgot the English title of it, but he plays the father of a disabled child. And so it's about their relationship. I think both of them would love to do other genre stuff, but that unfortunately, because of who they are and their years of doing that stuff, they can't. So I don't think there's a fear for them; they just accepted it. But it is hard for them to get out of that genre, and I don't even think it's just in the States. I think it's everywhere because for so many years that's what they projected.
Right.
Martial arts.
Right.
Whereas for me, my first film was not that at all. My first film was a small independent film where I played a gay character. You know. And I've done so many different things. It's just in the States, people equate me to being an action star. And I look at myself as an actor that knows how to do action well. But then acting is the priority for me.
Okay. So I'm hoping, man, you know, and Into the Badlands is such an example of diversity in entertainment, and in the case of Into the Badlands, television shows, but hopefully we see it even with movies as well, just as the culture becomes even more diverse here in the States, but not just here in the States, but in other places, that we began to see movies in Hollywood in particular, because you know of the name, that are more diverse. Like I'm thinking now, I think Crazy Rich Asians is about to hit the theaters. I think it might be sometime in the next couple of weeks. So, which is,
I mean, and the Crazy Rich Asians, that's crazy because like that's an Asian American cast, right? All Asian American cast, and it's been 25 years since there's been an all Asian American cast movie, which was Joy Luck Club. Okay, I mean, that's crazy that there's been that long of a gap for Hollywood to do another Asian American story, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, what about Crouching Tiger and this and that? I'm like, those weren't Asian American movies; those are Asian movies.
Right.
Like, there's a difference. There's a huge difference actually between Asian Americans and Asians. You know.
Right.
That's what also I think Hollywood gets confused a lot of times, because especially now with a global box office and the China market, it gets confused that an Asian American doesn't necessarily mean an Asian actor. You know, like a lot of people think that the diversity is coming because America's become more, you know, love and peaceful, but it's actually money driven because they know that box office there is huge, and it actually this year just surpassed the U.S. box office.
Oh wow!
So I think in March it finally was the first time that the Chinese box office was higher than the U.S. box office overall. So that has pushed a big, you know, drive to making the cast more diverse, but it's not really because of
diverse.
It's more cash for them.
Right. No, well, I'm not surprised that it's money driven.
But going back to diversity, it bothers me. One thing about why the show is not getting enough love is, like, you know, we went through this whole period of like Oscars so white, blah blah blah, and Hollywood has to get more diverse, and they're really pushing that idea. And then you really make a show that's really diverse, and then no one pays attention.
Right.
It's like, okay, what's going on? It's just lip service then, right? So, you know, hopefully they'll put their mouths where their, you know, put their actions where their mouths are, and start supporting the show a bit more.
I hope so. I mean, I do. My personal thought is that I do think that there is a kind of an old guard in Hollywood, or even in a lot of television shows. But I think that now, as we're seeing, like Into the Badlands is an example of that, or as we're seeing kind of more diversity in movie making, hopefully we will get to the point where you can't ignore it and the audience screams for it, so you have to do it.
Yeah.
So
I think it's changing now. I think it's, you know, it's definitely the audience has to scream for it, but I think also, obviously, as you said, the people in power, the ones making decisions, are the ones ultimately that have that total control.
Right.
And I think what's changing now is that the old guard was really the old guard. Like those guys are retiring now. And
right.
The people that I see that are heads of studio now are in their 40s and 50s, And so they're not the older guys from before. And these guys that are in their 40s and 50s grew up in a more diverse environment. They've traveled more, they've seen more, and so their understanding of the world is a more diverse world. So I kind of can't really blame it on the old guard because they probably grew up in a town that was all white people, and they've only experienced white people's stuff, right? Whereas now this younger generation, they're seeing it. So that's why the change is slowly starting to happen. Especially with our show, like our other producers. When I was on board, I wasn't originally meant to play Sonny. I was just an executive producer putting together the martial arts side of the show. And Stacy Scher and Michael Schamberg and all our other executive producers were very adamant, as well as AMC, that the character be Asian. And so I was very surprised to hear that, because at first I was like, oh, you're going to put a white guy in this role, like, for sure. And they're like, no, he's going to be Asian. I was like, oh, wow, I was pleasantly surprised. And then every move from that point onwards off of Sonny was like, either it's going to be a strong female, or it's going to be a person of color, or this and that. I mean, there are also white people in the show too. It's not like we cut them out, totally. But it's a very well-rounded cast, and it's a conscious effort, and it does take that. You have to make a conscious effort, and even it comes down to all our extras. Like when we make the casting call for extras, we specifically say we want people of different ethnicities, because we feel that world will be mixed. It's not going to be all white. I mean, honestly speaking, in the future, 200, 300 years in the future, everybody's going to be brown.
Right.
So we got to accept that and understand that,
Yeah, no, it's funny. The show is such an example of again, so many different elements of great entertainment, from the diversity, from the writing, from the costume design, the fight choreography, the performances, all of it is just a kind of an amalgamation of greatness, and we haven't really seen anything like this on TV. And it's interesting. I think the last time we talked, you said that there possibly are more shows coming down the pike that are similar to this. But I was saying to you, there is an element that you guys have about this show that I think will be hard to duplicate. There's a chemistry, I guess, that seems to come across with you guys on screen. That gives the show I just a feel that makes it very, very special outside of the stuff that I just mentioned, and I think that will be hard to duplicate. So
yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. Yeah, because then the tendency is to go, okay, diversity, we're doing a martial arts show, so it should be all Asians, right? Yeah. Or like, Black Panther is great, but it's all African Americans. Right? Yeah. So it's like, what can you do to really have a real mix or a melting pot of people? And like our show does that for sure. Yeah. And so let's see if other shows can do that, because the other martial arts shows coming up, are they going to be just Asians, or is it going to be like a mix of other people? Let's see. Yeah.
Well, hopefully we do get more diversity. I really feel like Into the Badlands, especially when it comes to American TV, is really kind of leading the way. We've had some other stuff, but not on the level of production and all the other stuff that Into the Badlands has. So,
hopefully people notice it before it gets canceled. So
I hope not, man. I told you, man, if this show gets canceled, I'm gonna lose my job, because I'm gonna be sleeping out in front of AMC in New York. I think you said that's where it is. Yeah. Moving the family up to New York, and we're gonna get a little box tent, and we're gonna be sleeping right outside of the studio. So, but no, man, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on. I know that you've got to get out of here because you've got a plane to catch. So, right. So, thanks so much, man. Hopefully, we can have you on again sometime later in the future. I know it seems like you got a lot going on. So. Hopefully we can.
Definitely. Let's do it. I want to keep this up. I want to keep more, critical mass going. So let's keep, like, whenever you have any ideas or whatever, hit me up, and I'll definitely come back on.
Okay. All right.
Let's for sure do something before the 3D premiere.
Okay. Yep, that will work. So I just want to say to our audience, you guys, there you have it. Interview with Daniel Wu, one that I never thought would happen, but you know what? And that just goes to say you never know who's watching your channel. So thank you, Daniel, so much for coming on.
We all watch the channel. I'll tell you this, like during last season, and I said it last time we did the interview, but sometimes when you're working on the show and you're in it, like you don't feel great. It's a tough show to make, and so sometimes I was playing your podcast in the makeup room for the cast members, because this is the first season where we're still making the show while some of the episodes were airing,
Mhm.
right? So in the morning, like that Monday morning, I came back in to set working, or Monday or Tuesday, it would be Tuesday for you guys because you post it later. I would play it in the morning in the makeup room, and everyone would pick up everyone's spirits. Even the crew, like the makeup girls and all those people, they loved it too. Just loving hearing that there's people out there loving the show.
Yeah, no, we're glad. I mean, all of us, all of the other YouTubers, or whether they're posting on IG or they have podcasts or whatever, man, we love the show. So we thank you and the rest of the cast for giving us such a great experience. And as I said, Into the Badlands is an experience. It's my wife last night was like, she's still finishing up, and she was finishing up. We're almost done with season 2 for her. And again, you know, I was trying to sleep, and she was like, "Listen, I'm gonna watch this show," and I was like, "All right." So
That's awesome. That's awesome. I know that feeling because my wife doesn't like to watch most of the stuff I watch. So when she catches on to something that I like, also, it's like, oh wow, a bonus. We can enjoy this together.
Right.
So great.
All right. Well, thanks again, man, and until next time.
All right. Peace. Thank you.
All right. Take care.